So let's maybe start with Dennis, as he's the guest of honor in here. So yeah, Dennis, could you say a couple words about yourself, please?
Thank you, Gabor. Hello, everyone. It's so lovely to be here with you today. My name is Denis Ivanov, and I'm head of localization at Belka Games, working in a company already for 5 years. I started as a support manager and currently head of localization. Before, I was working as an interpreter during rally raids in China and Kazakhstan and other countries. So that's it. Thank you.
That's very cool. All right, so a little bit about myself. My name is Gabor Kovac. I'm the customer experience manager here at Grizzly. I have a whole bunch of experience in IT, which makes me look old, I suppose. But yeah, I started as the IT guy in the server room and then got into the localization industry, which I have been part of for 7 years now. And yeah, translation technology in particular is part of my field of expertise. Yeah, greetings from Hungary as well. And yeah, let's maybe get going. So, all right. So Dennis, I will introduce the kind of the agenda for today, and we can get started after that. So, all right, let's take a look at what we're going to be talking about today. So, introduction is going to be about giving you a brief overview of Belka Games and Gridley. And in the second part of the webinar, which in my opinion is going to be the most exciting bit, we're going to be basically talking about obviously best practices in mobile game localization. So Dennis is going to give us exclusive insight of the kind of workflow, how they've adopted Gridley, and yeah, what goes into localizing a game successfully, basically. And then the third part is going to be about localization technology. That's going to be kind of the techie bit. So in this segment, we'll basically uncover tips and tricks to take advantage of Gridley, what worked for Belka Games, what they're going to be experimenting with and looking into in the future. And yeah, Dennis will be sharing some insights on how to kind of streamline localization workflow and cut QA time in half, which, you know, sounds awesome. And towards the end, we're going to have a QA session as usual. So we're giving you guys maybe 15 to 10 minutes to ask your questions. We'll open up the floor to everyone attending this webinar as well. We do value your curiosity and we want to make this a little bit more interactive. So yeah, at the end, please feel free to ask us anything. We have a bunch of lovely people also moderating the chat. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type it in there. Some of the good people there might be able to answer it right away as well. All right, so let's kick things off. So Dennis, could you please tell us a little bit more about Belka Games, what kind of games you develop, etc.?
Yeah, for sure. We make awesome mobile games like Clockmaker, Bermuda Adventures, and Solitaire Cruise with a combined user base of 1 million daily users. And basically, nice. We don't want to stop there. Yeah, so we'll release another great and exciting project very soon. So stay tuned.
Very nice. So how many people are you guys, and how many people work in the actual localization part of the projects?
So at Belka Games, we are a team of approximately 350 employees, and our growth is consistent. Our company is home to like different specialists. And if we'll speak about our localization department, it consists of 2 localization managers and department head. It's me. Generally, each manager handles 2 of our company's projects.
Very nice. Thank you very much. So after this, let me just kind of briefly touch on, of course, Gridley, tell you a bit about our product. So basically, Gridly, as you can probably tell, it's a content spreadsheet platform for localization and automations, content management, etc. We have a whole bunch of features regarding localization, of course. So Gridly can handle languages, target target multiple sources even. We do have features such as translation memories, glossaries, basically the toolkit that you would need to localize the content that you put in there. And then we have the CMS side of Gridly as well, which can house any type of content that you can throw at it. So we do have, for example, integrations with engines such as Unity and Unreal, so it can ingest files from those engines and hook into them via the API as well, for example. And then, we also have a whole ton of automations built in, whether you want to machine translate or send notifications on Slack to ping people about localizations arriving, for example, or generate voices or images and things like that. We also got that covered. So yeah, just a brief intro. Obviously, if you're curious, we're going to have a bunch of links where you can find us at the end as well. So yeah, let's get going. All right, so now we get into the exciting bits. So the most anticipated part of today's kind of webinar is to learn the best practices. Dennis has a whole ton of tips and good strategies for us today. So yeah, so basically, could you tell us a little bit about how Belka Games evolved when it comes to the localization? What was kind of the initial approach as opposed to what it is today?
Yeah, for sure. As I mentioned before, I joined Belka Games almost 5 years ago. At the time, I was juggling work in support and localization on the Funky Bay project. So I could only devote about half of my time to localization. On other company projects, the project managers were handling the entire localization. We also used various contractors. So Clockmaker relied on the services of just one company, whereas for Funky Bay, we mixed freelancers and localization studio. There was also a difference in file exchange process. Like on Clockmaker, the guys exchanged Microsoft Excel files and eventually switched to Google Sheets later. On Funky Bay, we partially implemented a CAD tool. It was crowd-in within the company and used Microsoft Excel files with the contractors and freelancers. And I'll be honest here, it was extremely uncomfortable for us and for contractors because of pipelines. It caused a lot of pain and suffering. And I had to pull out the text from the CAD tool each time, put them in Microsoft Excel, pass them to the contractor in Slack, receive the file from the contractor back, save it in my device, transfer the data from it into the CAD tool, process the information within the tool. So it was really, really a headache. This painful cycle of drudgery just kept on repeating itself. So believe me, it wasn't fun at all. And before long, we decided to stop using freelancers on Funky Bay. We didn't have a single point of contact there, and we had to double check their work several times over, which was a huge time sink. So we decided to hand over all the work to the localization studio. This move put us entirely to Google Spreadsheets full time. And let me tell you, it was like a breath of fresh air. We carried on like this for a while, but soon it became pretty obvious and clear that juggling support work with localization management was getting tougher and tougher. The company opened a full-time localization manager position, and guess who gets the job? Yeah, it was me.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so I faced with setting up all the processes and the work of the new department from scratch. we ran some localization quality test with our partner and decided to choose one contractor for all of our projects. We decided to use Google Sheets as our localization kit because A, it was free, B, it was really, really fast. We created unique log kits for each project, which our specialists from different departments worked on along with contractors' managers. Some projects used one log kit, others used two, and for instance, Solitaire Cruise, we even had the free log kits. So just imagine like free log kits for one project. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, juggling all those files around. And by the way, yeah, I do see that as a very common pattern among clients that approach us as well. So it can be an absolute pain to juggle files around, email them or whatever, and then make sure that everybody's working from the latest version. So that can be a very difficult part of the job as well.
Sure.
Cool. All right. All right. So what were the typical challenges for each project? So you do have 3, I believe, projects in Gridley at the moment, right?
At the moment, it's 2. Yeah.
Oh, 2.
But
sorry,
soon it will
and
be
the
3.
third is on the way. Yeah. And how was the transition from Google Sheets and then I suppose each and every kind of project as you moved on made the next one a little bit easier to handle, right? So please do tell us a little bit more about that as well.
Yeah, so like if we speak about Clockmaker, we stored client text there in one log kit and text for bundles and live ops in another. Because of this, we often got lost in content, especially during LQA tests, which, by the way, we also started to actively implementing that time. The contractors testers would find a bug in one of the keys, but had no idea where the keys was stored in the client log kit or in the bundle log kit. And it was even more fun when like contractor testers found text with errors somewhere, and we didn't have any idea where it like really stored. But it could get worse, like when the bug turned out to be in Korean or Japanese, for example. That's when we really started pulling our hair out. As for Solitaire Cruise, yeah, it was really painful. And for Solitaire Cruise was even it was a really headache. We used to unlock it as a draft there, where text were broken down into versions. The second log kit held the client text, final text, and the third was the final draft for bundles with live ops. So can you imagine how big a problem it was to correct any text there? We had to fix it first in the draft, and then in both final versions, all while keeping consistency and going on a witch hunt to track down all lines with identical text. Then we had a new project on the horizon. It was Bermuda Adventures. If there was more than one log kit here too, we would have definitely lost our way for good. So one day we hit boiling point and realized that things couldn't go on like this anymore. On top of all, we realized that we were missing a lot of features that were absolutely essential for comfortable localization, for correct localization. Basically, we wanted there more. We wanted like automation tools, better access control, and custom UI, more straightforward way of tracking changes, translation memory, built-in glossary, machine translation, and automatic QA and LQA checks.
Right.
And then we needed to find something, it's like as similar as it's possible to Google spreadsheets, so that the team could quickly acclimate and get used to the new process, but better, faster, stronger, and with all required tools. A colleague of me suggested I check out Gridley, and as soon as I saw it, I knew that this was the one tool to localize them all that help us to solve many of our problems, basically.
Nice. Yeah, and then we'll touch on some of those kind of features later on as well. But yeah, so basically the translation toolkit made you guys basically save a whole bunch of time and effort, and you had some hairs to pull on other difficult things in the future as well, which is cool. All right. So basically, the just to kind of summarize this as well, the typical challenges are, or basically the typical challenges here on each of the project require some features that you basically just listed. So these features allowed you guys to save a lot of time and a lot of hassle and a lot of manual work, which is always good in my book
you
as
really
well.
need it.
Yeah.
For decent localization, please consider this stuff. It's really helpful.
Yeah. We'll talk about automation as well, and I'm a big fan of it. So anything that I cannot or I should not do manually and I can automate, I will. So that's
good approach.
yeah. So which kind of brings us to our next part of the presentation as well. So here we're kind of going to be talking about the transition, how the workflow improved, how you kind of move stuff into Gridly, what made you kind of decide on the structure that you're going to be using and putting in there, the processes, basically designing them from the ground up. Could you let us know any lessons learned, potential pitfalls, all that, so people can make an easier transition, for example, and improve their processes as well?
Yeah, with pleasure. Like during the transition and before, like each time we learned something new, and our transition process became more comfortable, faster, and more deliberate. As for Solitaire Cruise, we started with a trial on it and got the technical team on board. It was the perfect project to transfer because people often complained about its workflow and spreadsheets. Most importantly, its storage format allowed us to quickly move text from one place to another. We had a few meetings, made all necessary preparations, and started the migration to a new and still, like at that time, very little known platform for us. Here is what we really considered during that time. We had to prepare the entire infrastructure in Gridly, including creating the project databases and other stuff. It's it's different from Google Spreadsheets because, for example, there we stored everything mostly in one place or in the tabs. Then we had to transfer the glossary, which is really also like important, and it's also great that Gridly has like built-in one. It's helpful. The next one is a color legend. This was basically a big issue during the transition, as colors can be transferred automatically, unlike text. And during the transition, we were forced to recolor all the cells manually, just by our hands. Then we needed to understand which logic tasks were necessary for the developers. We were trying to understand how things worked in Gridly, what was needed for that. We were figuring out how to work with the API also. Plus, we needed to understand how our work would change with the transition to Gridly. And the last one, we needed to figure out access to Gridly with system administrators. We distributed credentials to everyone who works with text and translations, limited access for QA specialists, and gave full access to developers. This give us more security, and it's really safety now. Also, we completely blocked the ability for business development managers, marketing specialists, project managers, and so on. So like they cannot make any edits eventually. And as for development and testing process, it's also changed for the better. We no longer have to like wait for the builds to compile, can compare multiple localized files and have a locale validator for extra checks. Yeah, so like you probably can see how it counts here.
Yeah. So yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, basically via the API as well. So we'll talk about kind of the Unity integration and how you can push screenshots, which is very interesting in the kind of the techie bit of the conversation as well. All right, and then I suppose all this, because this was the very first project moving over to Gridley, right? So this kind of made you learn the lessons, so to speak, go through the processes, kind of lay out everything logically. So I suppose then the next project hopefully was a little bit easier time to move into Gridley, right?
Yeah, it was much easier to do with our next project with Clockmaker, and like basically we improved our pipelines and workflow there. The transition process became easier. Yeah, and basically here you can also see like our current pipeline. It was like changed after the transition. It's really like important that here we like have localization managers and QA, they make the most of the job, while the developer like only pulls text in the middle and creates keys in the beginning. So it's really gave localization a breeze. And as for Clockmaker, we already knew what to expect, and we were ready for all nuances and problems of the transition. Because like Clockmaker is the oldest and most legendary project at Belka Games. It required us to be extremely cautious during the transition and approach all the processes with care and attention to detail. From our experience with Solitaire Cruise, we brought over the task template for transitioning to Gridley. This time around, we already knew which tasks were crucial and which ones were unnecessary. For instance, we didn't need to immediately plan for screenshots functionality like we did it in Solitaire Cruise, which ended up taking a lot of time in the beginning. Instead, we scheduled screenshots for the next iteration, freeing up the developers in early stages. The first thing we did was determine which databases were needed to create and which events should be housed in each database. Next, we created the glossary and transferred all the terms from Google Sheets into it. We learned from our experience with Solitaire Cruise and focused on the glossary before setting up the grids and transferring the text. This saved us a great deal of time. The process started to differ slightly then from what we had on Solitaire Cruise. While there, we transferred all the tabs from the spreadsheets using a synchronizer. It's really a great feature of Gridley, which helps you to synchronize your content by pressing literally one button. Yeah, and so for Clockmaker, it didn't work partly just because Clockmaker has really massive lockkit. So the thing is, Gridley has a limitation on the maximum number of sheets in Google Sheets with when syncing. Clockmaker, as I told, like easily surpassed this limit. Right. As a result, we decided to synchronize only the text that were in the client sheets, and we manually transferred the bundles and live ops texts.
Cool. All right. So yeah, basically we mentioned a whole bunch of features, and you kind of use a lot of them as well, which is awesome. So yeah, what would you say, which features had the biggest impact on improving your workflow? What do you guys use on a daily basis, and what made the teams happier essentially by making their lives easier?
It's so many features in Gridly, and this guy is basically adding these features just monthly. I don't know, like weekly, and we really
bi-weekly
yeah.
releases usually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so difficult to catch you. Yeah, and in the beginning we wanted to try some of as we think like great features. We picked ones that would give us the biggest impact, and you can see here what we ended up with. The first is a branch creation, which let testers to separate changes from different sources. It's really a lifesaver when you're working on multiple big localization projects and files. The next one is customizable views in the grid system. This allows us to restrict access to certain views and columns, so each department now only sees what's relevant to them. Then screenshots, a really cool feature. We can snap screenshots with the highlighted text, I will show you later, and send them like straight to Gridly from our builds. And the last one is also important one, is a built-in translation memory and glossary. The system like automatically inserts text if it's been translated before, which helps us to keep text consistent and save our money, basically.
Yeah, you don't want to pay for the same translation twice, is
Yeah,
it?
for sure.
So yeah, so yeah, all these will show off in a little bit as well. But yeah, thank you. So those were actually some really nice insights as well into your workflow. So yeah, you guys did a really great job at figuring stuff out. I really you'll show it in a bit as well, but I really like the way you thought about like structuring the strings in advance, so it doesn't turn into a mess and people looking for stuff essentially, which is very, very nice. Again, you just want to save time there as much as you can. So all right, so so basically now we're moving into the techy bit, so stay with us. This is gonna be some tips and strategies and basically some stuff that are interesting to know. If, for example, you're a loc manager, or if you're thinking about localizing your game as well, there are some technical aspects that you don't necessarily want to think about while in the process of translation, right? So it's good to know some and consider some stuff in advance. So yeah, let us know all about it.
Yeah, I hope that localization managers, like masters of localization, will not get bored here. So I will just try to give you some like important essential stuff. As for the technical preparation, the first things that you should consider is that your engine should support Unicode. Like Unicode can support more than 65,000 characters, which allows you to display correctly almost every character that you need. Next one is your language-specific assets should be stored in one place. Just put it in one directory, and your development team will know where all your art assets, localization assets are stored. Then use unique string IDs, which helps your translators and localization managers to track all the changes to strings. Do not combine to separate text strings. Like combined strings are formed from like two separate strings that's pulled from the code and displaying as a single sentence in a game. This can cause many sufferings to localization, especially with like verbs, gender, tenses. And then you should add support of bidirectional text in the engine. Do this if you plan to add Arabic or Hebrew, because these languages are read from right to left instead of left to right. Use fonts that are easy to read. Like fonts that are too large or too small can cause your text to overlap or be difficult to read. Next one is your UI should be scalable to accommodate longer translations. It's really important for your buttons and boxes, and use game code to display the text in the images. Like if you will do this, it will be much easier to localize and translate all your text that's placed on your art assets.
Yeah, and
it's
you
just,
don't want to
it's,
you don't want to go into like overlong strings and seeing that while you're actually opening up the game and
yeah.
right. So that's yeah, usually it is 30%. Am I right? So usually you should leave like 30% more
Yeah.
space. Yeah, so that's kind of a good practice as well.
It's probably a general rule of thumb.
Yeah. Some languages can do double, but yeah. Anyways, so besides the actual these technical points, obviously those are very much related to the engine side of the localization process. So it will make your life and the translators' lives and the QA testers' lives easier as well. Yeah. What else should be considered for a successful localization strategy? What do you think?
Yeah, for other stuff, they're not the technical ones, but also important. And the first one is determine which language should be localized. I mean, it's also essential. Like deciding on localizations depends on how your game performs in different regions and countries to get more players involved. And your marketing and analytics bodies here will help you to figure out which localization you really need. I will suggest you to start translating your game into English, French, German, Spanish, and Italian, since they cover the biggest and the most lucrative part of the market. Then you can think about adding like Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Portuguese, and other cool, perfect languages. Test them and other languages out with your A/B tests, localize a part of the game or just one event and see the results. If they will be insufficient, you will not spend much money on it, and you will save your time. Always consider how well people in different regions know English. If they're good at it, your efforts might go unnoticed. I mean, if your localization will be slightly bad, they will just switch to English, and that's all. And like, for example, for our game, we started for Bermuda Adventures, we started with English, and then added other like major European languages like English, French, German, Spanish, Italian before going to global. And just before the global, we added simplified Chinese, Korean, and Japanese. And I also build effective processes. I mean, I wouldn't tell you why it's important to do in the beginning, rather to get stuck in total chaos later. And the last one is run localization quality assurance. Never forget about it during the localization tests. Native speakers can feel and experience your game. These people can find localization bugs such as truncations, incorrect line breaks, and non-consistent terms. Yeah, so probably it's like essential stuff. I think there are much more, but I will suggest you to take this into account.
For sure. Yeah, RQA, again, very important. A lot of people tend to forget it, but it can totally break immersion. I had that experience as well as a Hungarian speaker that, we have similar words that mean the same thing. And it's, anyways, yeah, very, very good point there. All right. And then, yeah, basically moving into the next segment, we kind of want to realize that technology is our friend. Technology can make our lives easier. So again, anything that I won't have to do manually, I'm a fan of. So basically, yeah, technology and automations will allow you to skip the boring stuff and let you focus on the fun part of your work, like the actual translations and magic with words and all that. So basically, could you tell us a little bit about, I think, sorry, Zoom is a little bit broken, but yeah, sorry. Could you technology? See, could you please give us some tips and tricks to take full advantage of Gridley, and what you guys found to be kind of the
for sure.
best things to use in the system?
Oh, here it is. Yeah. So I will slightly go here, and then I will like turn into Gridley to show you guys everything right there. So first one, settle on a grid template that would serve as a basis for creating other grids, as like manual edits later would be required in the created grids. I mean, if you create some grids like templates in the beginning, then you create like a lot of grids of your own, and then you need to change something in a template. It will be really difficult to go back to all your previous grids and fix it there. So just consider a really decent and good template in the beginning. Second one, include the functionality for pulling screenshots from Unity into Gridley. Is an improvement, as I told you earlier, but it's really good and perfect stuff for your QAs and LQAs. Next one is work in separate branches instead of a single branch. Like one branch would serve as a draft, and the other one would be your master branch. Next one is maintain separate translation memories for each project to prevent legacy issues from impacting one another. Create a separate views for character limit monitoring, allowing for real-time tracking for the current character count. It's really important for your UI designers and narrative designers. Next one is divide your grids into multiple databases within the project. This will make it easier for you to navigate through Gridley and keep your text organized. And the last one here is create statuses for each stage in your localization pipeline. I will show you it also later. This will make communication easier for you, for your team and others, and will help you to understand what stage each line is currently at. So I think probably we can switch to my screen.
Yes, sir. It's time for me to stop sharing, and hopefully you can share yours.
Here you are. Wait. And yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so here's a Gridley. You can see some of our projects on the left side. It's like Solitaire Cruise, Clockmaker, Bermuda Adventures, some other secret projects also. I wouldn't tell you about them now, but maybe soon you'll hear something about this project. So currently we are in a test project, and here you can see some databases, like some of them like Untitled one, because here we just conduct some tests of ours, not to get hurt some parts of our other games. And here, for example, you can create a new database just by tapping one button, set a name, for example, Clockmaker new or whatever, and you can store here new grids, create a grid from a template. Here you can also see that we have some templates for our projects. They're unique, and let's create something for, we'll see, like, I mean, sorry, yeah. Template for Clockmaker. Yeah, so just creating like this, and you can set a name and go inside. And then you can open it. Inside you have everything set. I mean, all localizations that you need.
All the columns laid out, all that you defined.
And with the views here, like we have translator view, character limitation, QA view, and other things around. But I think it will be much interesting for you to see the grid from our project. It's a copy one, but it's totally like the same as we are using in Solitaire Cruise. Here you can see some strings with a text. We have master branch and draft branch. As I told, like make your cells secure here. For example, I cannot make any like change in any cell in this view and in other views as well. And only QA verified statuses and disabled statuses are stored here. And most of the job done in a draft branch. And here I can fix and change all the cells. Let's slightly dive into views. In the default view, we just have everything opened, and usually programmers working here, narrative designers sometimes. And as for the others, we have translator view. Here, for example, record IDs are locked and our contractors, and we cannot change here anything, so our key is protected. As for the statuses that I mentioned before, here we have like different of them, like starting from ready to translate and finishing with QA verified, and have several statuses that we only need sometimes just when we have bug or we updated some cell after LQA. Yeah, and we also have like some color legend here for every status. For example, if I will color it in LKA, change the status to LKA updated, I should color it in turquoise and should color the cell where I made like some changes after LKA also in turquoise. And you also can see disabled one is great. For other views, it's character limitation that I mentioned. Here, oh, sorry, something went. Okay, I will show you in different view. Sorry.
No worries.
Sorry,
I just
yeah.
wanted to add as well that these statuses are basically completely customizable. So you made those statuses, right? And basically, people that are allowed into the grid can choose from those, choose from the values on that list as the status. So you can totally customize your own. We do have some built-in ones, but yeah, those statuses are totally custom. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. And here we have like QA view, and also I mentioned screenshots before, and we have like special column for screenshots that we made in a build. If you will open it, you will see the text. It's here with the cancel button. It's difficult to see. I'll show you a different one. Yeah, with the OK. Yeah, like you see that it's like highlighted in red, especially this text, and it's correlating to the text in the cell. And it's same for all other text here with watch ad. Yeah, and we have the same text in the cell. And as for the like limitations, I will show you in different, it's clockmaker one grid. Yeah, character limitation is here. Yeah, so that's how it looks. Here I can set the maximum number of characters for every language, and by formula here is I can see, is it okay with the limits, or is it like exceeding. For example, here we have 72 and it's colored in red. So a lot of like many interesting stuff that you can do in Gridly, and you can personally arrange everything for yourself. So recommend it from our side, and we continue to add some new features, new stuff, and like reworking our current pipeline every month, basically.
Yeah, you're always experimenting with stuff, and yeah, ask a whole bunch of cool questions as well. So that's really nice. All right, so let me come back into. I'm sharing my screen as well, real quick. All right. Awesome. So yeah, thank you very much for that. I think, yeah, that was super insightful. So please tell us about the secret project and what's cooking at Belka Games, what the future holds, what's the plan for you guys. Yeah.
Nice from your side, Gabor, but no information about
Not
the
just
secret
yet.
project.
Maybe the future me watching the YouTube recording back, I will already know. But that's yeah.
Yeah, but currently we are preparing our last project in May in Bermuda Adventures to transfer it to Gridley. We have taken into account even more nuances and fully prepared for the migration. The most challenging aspect here seems even the biggest lockit. It's bigger than Clockmaker's one, but we already have a solution for it. Yeah, and for our R&D department projects that are planned, they are planning to put on Gridley right away without using Google spreadsheets at all. Moreover, the transition to Gridley is now mandatory item on the checklist for all our new projects. So, and for the secret project, just stay tuned. Maybe soon you'll know some more interesting information about it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. That was super cool. And yeah, very nice presentation. I really enjoyed talking to you about this stuff. That's kind of
Me too. Thank you.
My passion as well. So I think we're right on time pretty much. So we did well. Yeah, it's time for the Q&A. So I'm not sure. I haven't monitored the chat, but yeah, please do feel free to ask us anything or let us know any thoughts, questions, concerns, anything that you might throw at us.
Yeah, I would be really happy to hear your questions. Just don't be shy.
Yeah. Or the
I see so many activities happening in
yeah.
the chat.
Nice. Which is the most important features or like to use? That's for you, Dennis, I think.
I think the most important one for me is like version control, because in the beginning it wasn't look like a killer feature for us, but then we just understood that this feature gives us a lot of opportunities and save our text from some simple mistakes. And when I told about this feature to our developers, they were so like amazed, and it was really interesting for them that somewhere, and also in localization, we can have like different branches and views.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, that's a lot of people actually use branching or should consider using branches as well if they haven't already. So it basically prevents a lot of the human error, accident overrides, and yeah, you can lock people into their own kind of workflow and their own kind of little world and stuff that they can interact with, and then only commit verify strings, for example, to the main branch, and then that can go into the LQA of the game, for example. So yeah, that can be super useful. Oh, sorry, I think yeah, there was a question about the glossary. No, we do actually have a glossary built into Gridley, so you can kind of build your own or transfer even if you have glossaries already. You can bring them in, and then along with the translation memories, basically you will be able to see the suggestions from the translation memory, and you will be able to also see any matches from the glossary if you want, a term translated as a specific as like a character name or a legendary item or something like that. The translators will be able to see it, and then you can also export it, so you can give it to external vendors, etc. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really useful, and guys probably making it better and better day by day. So I think like really soon we'll see some other improvements on the glossaries.
Yeah, glossary revamp is coming, sneak peek. But oh, sorry, Václav actually let us know that we missed the how how the source strings are created in Gridley and imported into the game. So I think that's the Unity plugin, right? So yeah,
it's a Unity plugin. For us, like we decided to use our own plugin. It's just our approach, but also you can use a plugin from Gridley. Our programmers like to do everything by themselves. So here we just made it and now using it for our other projects. It's really it was a difficult job for them in the beginning, but then like it's gave us a lot of opportunities later. And even with the screenshots, I mean, it also was made on the basis of our Unity plugin.
Yeah. So we do have, as we mentioned, we do have our own, which is freely available, and then that is open source as well. So you can take it as a template, as it were, and make it your own, add your own features, scripts, basically what else you would need for it. So yeah. Oh, and we have a Figs related question as well, I think. So you were speaking about starting Figs and Portuguese, Brazilian, Portuguese, Portugal. Do you work well with Latin American Spanish? Why you would like to start with Figs, if anybody? Yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, Figs is like a good starting point as well. It's like a general thing, but yeah, please.
Yeah, it's a good starting point as well, for sure. But for us, like I think it's just a legacy, and we used to start from Spanish, I mean, Italian, French, German, and others in the beginning, and then spreading just because we know this market better. But also, like Latin American market is also interesting for us. And currently, we have, like for example, Brazilian, Portuguese for Clockmaker, for Bermuda Adventures, and Solitaire Cruise, almost everywhere. Yeah.
All right. Oh, and we have a memo queue related question I can answer real quick as well. That's a good one. Can screenshots and audio files be stored in Gridley be transferred to MemoQ? No, unfortunately. So MemoQ cannot import those assets, but there's a really cool workaround actually. So where Dennis actually showed the different views with the translator view and things like that. So we mentioned you can share it with a group, but you can also publish a read-only link to a given view as well. So technically, our clients use that a lot. So for example, if you're translators, you can have MemoQ in one screen, and then the link with the grid open on another, and then it's read-only, but you can still open the images as Dennis showed, play the audio files and stuff like that. So you can use those assets in Gridley as reference to the translation outside of Gridley as well.
Yeah, there are many opportunities. I mean, even now you can work with open AI stuff. We have, for example, this really cool feature that Gridley added recently. Yeah, still didn't add it into our pipeline, but experimenting a lot with open AI things.
Oh yeah, we've just released it as well, so it's yeah, it's fairly new. Oh, and yeah, so we have a branching related question as well. All right, so have you had to maintain two versions? Oh, sorry, it's jumping around. Let me go back. Sorry. Have you had to maintain two versions of the same string, one for live and one for future release that contains changes to that string systems? Or do you prefer to create new strings in these situations rather than leaning on the branching?
The first option, I mean, it's really now like helpful and give us like opportunity to like we're sure that we don't have some you know, like problems or tags that we didn't check with our QAs or LQAs in the prod in production. Before it was tricky one, but currently we're just merging some like corrected strings. I mean, we're translating them, working with them in our draft branch, then our QA checking them also in the draft branch. They're uploading everything to the game also from draft branch. Then when it's ready, they just changing the status to QA verified, putting mark in the checkbox, and by merging function in Gridly, they sending all corrected and new strings to the master branch, which contains, as I mentioned, only LQA verified strings. I mean, they passed LQA test and they're done. I mean, in the last level of localization.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, and you can have several branches as well. Even I see people have like a branch for localization, which goes into an LQA branch, which same as you guys, if verified, goes into the master that can make the live version, etc. And you can have many kind of workflows built around it as well.
So do we have time for another question?
That's a repeat. Yeah, I think we've answered that one. So that was the Unity plugin one. Yeah, I think we're basically on time. So yeah, thank you very much for your questions. And if we haven't answered yours, please feel free to email us. You can find us in all the usual places on social media. You can email us at team@gridly.com as well. If you have any questions whatsoever, yeah, please feel free to ping us with anything that you might want to know about Gridly, Belka Games, and their awesome special projects and stuff like that. So yeah, I think we're basically on time. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Dennis especially for putting this all together. That was amazing. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you everyone for watching and attending. And yeah, have a great one.
Thank you a lot, guys. Bye-bye. Have a great evening.
Indeed. Bye, guys.